I think you know everybody on stage, our panelists. From my left is Dr. Omoding Abrahams. He is from the Uganda Cancer Institute. And next is Mr. Steve Crump. He is the head of international affairs, the Royal College of Physicians. And we have Professor Joey, who is at the School of Medicine, Maseno University. And we have Dr. Sitna Ali, who is an oncologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital and a former trainee of the Royal College of Physicians, a medical training initiative. A very warm welcome to our panelists. And how we'll conduct this session is we would like it to be a very interactive session. I'm sure there's a lot of knowledge that was gained this morning through the speeches, and we would like you to participate and ask questions, any pertinent questions that you may want to throw to the gentleman and lady on this panel. I perhaps will begin by requesting the panelists to just give us a small statement, 1 minute, just to introduce and to talk about the areas of specialization, exactly 1 minute, so that it can form the introduction to this session. Right? Karibu, Dr. We should start with the lady. We've not heard her voice today, so we'll listen to Dr. Sitna Ali.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. As you've been told, my name is Dr. Sitna. I'm currently a medical oncologist working at the Aga Khan University Hospital. I did my medical oncology training through the Medical Training Initiative through the Royal College of Physicians. At that time, it was more of the ad hoc training that you've known. You get a sponsor, a mentor, and went to train in the UK. And I'm happy to share my insights about my training in the UK with you.
Thank you. Professor Joey?
Good afternoon. Actually, neurology is not difficult. You will come to realize when you come for the training.
Oh, very brief. Thank you very much. It caught me by surprise. Mr. Crump, thank you.
Good afternoon, my name's Steve Crump and I'm the Head of International Affairs at the Royal College of Physicians. I'm a recent appointment to the Physicians, but previously I was the Head of Global Programs for the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health. And I'm not a doctor. My function is programmatic, essentially to design global health programs that enable the skills of these eminent and wonderful people to be used for the best effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Omoding?
Yes, good afternoon. Abraham Somoding is my name. I work at the Uganda Cancer Institute as a medical oncologist. I did my training in Uganda at Makerere University. Then I did my master's somewhere in Mbarara University. And I did my oncology training at the University of Washington at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. I currently, other than doing the ward work and outpatient work, I also lead our outreach activities that are purely intended to roll out cancer services to regional referral hospitals. And I'm out of town every month to Mbarara, to Aroa, to Mbale. I'm quite very mobile on what I do and what I believe is taking cancer on wheels to those who need it. It's more cheaper to take a doctor out than to bring 100 patients to see one doctor. And that's my philosophy that keeps me going out every day. I also happen to be chosen the Uganda Cancer Institute to be the course convener for the East African Development Bank training program and fellowship to be a course convener for Uganda. Thank you very much.
Okay, asante sana. So just a reminder, when you're ready with any questions, please just raise your arm and I'll come to you. Maybe I'll just kick us off. For me as a layman, and maybe this question I'll ask Dr. Omoding. How come there's such a great rise in cancer cases. This wasn't the case some years ago, but all of a sudden we hear, if it is not a family member, it is somebody's friend or, how come?
Thank you very much. It's true, cancer is on the rise, and it's a couple of factors that attribute to that rise. To begin with, the advent of the HIV/AIDS epidemic changed the landscape of medicine. What never used to be seen has become more common, and because of the HIV that has affected the immune system. But along with HIV, have also come along other viruses that have actually taken advantage of the compromised immune system. And once your immune system is not strong enough to surveil against any of those small breaks in your cell cycle, eventually, if you have the perfect environment or perfect genes, that may actually put you at risk for developing cancer. So one is actually the advent of the HIV has actually heralded the increase in the incidence and prevalence of cancers. The other aspect that has actually led to the increase in cancers is people have gotten more aware, and the health-seeking behavior is much better. Many people now present to the health facility to seek for attention. In the past, if you had a cancer, many people will actually go to the witch doctor, and they will be told you've been bewitched by your neighbor, by so-and-so, and they had actually an abdominal mass, straightforward, and it was actually a tumor, but it was actually taken as a bewitchment. But however, now more people are presenting the health facility, and these are actually being diagnosed. Other than that, of course, the lifestyles have also changed. If you look at the plate of dinner you'll eat tonight and what your father or grandmother ate 20 years ago, there's a difference. Completely very different. It's too much in fat, too much in protein, less of vegetables, less of fiber. But the plate 20 years ago was purely boiled food, greens and vegetables. Meat was once in a month or even once in a year, Easter and Christmas. Those were the days when you'd actually eat meat. So dietary changes, lifestyles have changed. We smoke, we do less exercise, and all these have actually been a very good substrate for the increase in the cancers that we see.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. There's Dr. Nafula who asked me a very interesting question during the break, and I'd like her to pose that question. Daktari, yeah? Shall I come there? Oh, you can assist her with the microphone, yeah. Oh, she's here. We'll come to you next. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Nafula. I work for Nairobi Hospice, and I'm currently specializing in palliative care. So as the figures we've seen this morning, many of our cancer patients in this country come at an advanced stage. So most of them need palliative care. Unfortunately, we only have 3 trained specialists in the country, and out of the 3, only 2 of them are seeing patients. And the training is also not locally available. So like myself, I'm doing a distance learning course from a university in UK. Like the other 2 doctors also studied either in Cardiff or University of Dundee. So my question is, does this investment include palliative care at any point? Financial support for palliative care or investment in training?
Thank you. Mr. Crump, would you like to? Yeah. Okay. Essentially, the question is, does this initiative include training for palliative care?
May I? I'm very much involved in the course curriculum development for this particular program, and there is a component of palliative care. For both the TOT, the train of trainers, they are actually going to have a day or two where we're actually going to address palliative care issues, and how to tackle them, pain management, breaking bad news, and symptom control as well, all that, and end-of-life care. So it is actually a part and a parcel of the curriculum that we're actually packaging for our trainees as well.
Thank you very much.
Maybe just to add, because I think you see there are two components to this training. There's the initial 1 week that is going to go on, and then there is the long term. I think you're asking about long term, where you remember there's a mention about 2-year training, and that will be in cycles, etc. So your question was whether there is also that long term, or whether there is this short 1-2 week training, or both. Long term. You're talking about the long term, the one which will be done in the UK.
I mean, what I can add from a programmatic perspective in terms of how we design these things, and this is drawing reference from certainly my experience at the Royal College of Paediatrics as well as the Royal College of Physicians, is that we look for our work, our training, our programmatic interventions to have a beginning and a middle and an end. And I think too often you see training or interventions that don't actually follow through to any sort of conclusion, be it end of life. So I'm greatly encouraged that in this piece of work we actually do the full cycles for all intensive purposes.
Excellent.
If I may add also, again, that even on the fellowship program, other than doing the basic oncology, there will be the aspects of clinical oncology, and a part of it is really embedded with palliation as well. But at the end, they will be oncologists, but they might not be palliative care specialists, to be honest, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I'll go to you next, and then we shall come here to you, okay?
Good afternoon. My name is Benda Kithaka. I'm from Women for Cancer Early Detection and Treatment. Now, my question is, I've noticed we are an NGO that advocates for early detection for cervical cancer, and we also go ahead and educate on awareness for people to prevent diseases that can be prevented. I've noticed that this is targeted at physicians, 600 of them. And I'm asking my question whether there is an opportunity to also have the whole continuum of care that is taken care of in terms of training people from every different discipline that's targeted at prevention, as well as treatment, as well as palliation, as she's asked, because what we would then be doing is stemming the tide. Whereas we're focusing on physicians who would be treating the people who are coming to hospitals, late presentation of the disease is one of the reasons why we have high mortality rates. Could we then look at least 10% of the trained personnel being from other disciplines that are supporting care for cancer as well as neurological diseases, so that we can ensure that we stem the tide?
I think it's a good point. I think that's what she was coming up. What is the entry point? Is it just for physicians? Is it because there are people who may do palliation from various starting points. There could be nursing staff, there could be medical doctors, etc. But it's a very difficult question. But I think as it's an evolving program. Even within the discussions, there are certain things one is still polishing. You remember when I was talking, I said we need to train trainers first. So if they're physicians, if we're going to train if the fellowship is going to be for trainers, then it's going to be those who probably have done masters in internal medicine who go for the training. But as time rolls on, one of the things that we advocate now is pick some of these people early. They finish fifth year, they finish medicine, they go for a period of time. But there's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of policy that is involved. So your question may not be very clearly answered at the moment. But it is very important that you've mentioned the point, because it's important to include, because much of it has been targeting the doctor in very frank terms. So when you bring a point like that, people then go to the table and say, fine, we have been targeting 600 doctors. Can we, because you, like I said, if you're managing stroke, you can't do it alone. You need a cardiologist, you need a physiotherapist, you need an occupational therapist, etc. So if the 600 was the figure, nothing is cast in stone. I believe a point like that, either put in writing, I believe the MC is taking notes. I don't see him taking notes. But something like that can be brought up on the table and say, look, can we tweak a little? Take X and add Y so that we have a holistic patient management. It's a good point. And there are still a lot of sticking issues in terms of the detailed, the fine details.
Thank you so much for that answer. And it's partly what I was looking for, but let me just clarify a little. I'm not even a medical doctor. I'm a marketer who has turned into advocacy for cancer. Therefore, I'm looking at not just the physicians who are already going to medical school for 5 years so that they can be taken on the program. I'm speaking from the point of the people who have a genuine sort of interest in the field and who would play a role that's complementing the medical doctors who are being trained, so that we can have from the start of advocacy way before we get into actual treatment for disease, so that we have health not just from absence of disease, but taking up healthy living lifestyles, and so that people also have better health-seeking behavior. That's what I'm looking at. But thank you. I will be writing to the team as well.
And in
thank
fact,
you.
the target may probably shift, not just for the doctors alone. You have the nursing staff. And a lot of our palliative gurus are nursing staff. So those are some of the things that one can sit on the table and say, how do we tweak so that we have this cancer patient, this status epilepticus patient, managed holistically? It's a very good point.
Okay, thank you very much. I guarantee you this session is being recorded, so I'm sure the notes, we've just gone digital. Yeah. Yes, okay. Yes, go ahead.
I think you've raised a point, actually, which I'd like to ask a question to my clinical colleagues here, which is training the trainers, developing a cadre of expertise, developing a workforce. This capacity that we develop, we put in place in terms of neurology and oncology. How do we retain it going forward at the end of the program period?
How do we?
Retain it, retain the workforce that we train.
You see, in the past, there's been a lot of issues when people go to train. Sitna goes to the UK for 2 years, MTI program, and finds the UK so beautiful and doesn't come back to Kenya. Fortunately, there's a bit of a change. But having said that, the program actually is very, very specific, and the program is very categorical in choosing who goes, in terms of, sometimes it's written on your face. Sometimes it can be written on your face, but sometimes it is not written on your face. But there is a process where those who go for long-term training, and there's even documentation. In fact, they say 2 years and you must come back. Currently, there are 3 chaps doing neurology under the MTI program in the UK. And the selection was so stringent that you went, but you must come back. And there are ways of putting that in place. I just give you a visa for 20 days. You must come back in 20 days. But that aside, there are several ways of making sure people come back. The programs are very good. And in fact, the ones who have gone, Sitna is one of them. There's one who has gone and is arriving back today, Dr. Judith Kwasa. And there are some who are still outside, Sylvia Mbugo, for neurology. So there's a stringent process of doing that. The other thing that also is going to help us is, you remember when the Veronica, the EADB lady, the boss, Vivian, the development bank lady, talked and said our training, the training is going to target people from the periphery. Not that the urban area will be forgotten, but that already solves a lot of problems. Get people from the periphery, right? And there is not so much appetite to stay out, depending on what you are going to get and what you'll develop when you come back. And there's a lot of cross-reference. I think it should not be a worry, but it has happened in the past. There's been a lot of brain drain in the past, but hopefully with a stringent process, and in fact, when we have like the short courses, it is within those short courses that you pick the good, keen students who probably in the long run will go out.
Okay, thank you.
But
very much.
it's a concern, and the EADB, Royal College of Physicians, are very, very particular on that. Especially even when Akina Sitna were going out, they were very stringent. Are you going to come back? What's the evidence that you'll come back?
From a trainee perspective, going through the process, during the application process, you have to declare that you're going to come back for you to be taken on as a trainer. So in terms of retention, that is something. And then we have so much that has improved that makes it even better for us to come back. We have improvement in facilities, we have networking, we have digital medicine. So there's so much that you can come back to improve the services.
Excellent. That's very reassuring to hear. Now, in the interest of ensuring that we get as many questions, I'd just like to request us to have brief questions and, of course, also concise answers. I still want to get into the students who are waiting to ask some questions. But before that, I promised you to ask a question.
Thank you very much. My names are Atieno Otieno. I am the chair Maendeleo Kisumu County. Kisumu County is one of the major specialists in stone throwing. Dr. Joey knows about that. It could be a neurological issue. And that is why I am very glad to see Daktari there. We could partner with Maendeleo ya Wanawake. I'm requesting. We could partner with Maendeleo ya Wanawake. I'm anchoring this question on my sister's question as well. For the initial primary help, I know for your budgetary purposes, you may not be able to anchor this right now. But even on volunteer basis, Maendeleo ya Wanawake is an organization that has roots deep into the wards. For Kisumu area, where we have a lot of cancer emerging, many, in our meetings, I have women like 500 to 600 women meeting in a week. We have so many women who are suffering with cancer-like symptoms. Of course, I'm not a doctor and I'm not able to know. Are we able to have an opportunity to partner with an organization like Maendeleo ya Wanawake, where we can even be able to talk to the Nyamrerwas? Daktari, you know what I mean by this. The Nyamrerwas are people who are able to look at the initial village sicknesses but before they are taken to the hospital. Can we be able to do that? This has been done by Gluck's University in Kisumu. We are working in partnership with them so that we have the initial primary care to stop the avalanche of the cancer patients going up. We can do this as a volunteer for the first time to be able to make sure that we are a success. Thank you.
Did you say I'm neurological? Maybe we are all mad until a point. But that's a policy issue, I must say. It's a policy issue, and it's something that policy can, just like her point, brilliant point. You see, sometimes as doctors, we are very, they call it telescopic. You know, you've used a telescope. What do you see at the end of a telescope? I just see your nose. I can't even see your right eye and your left eye. So I think they're very good points, actually. So I think as a policy issue, I think they'll be forwarded, but it's difficult for any one of us here to come up and categorically say and be quoted that ABCD was agreed on. And since all this is being recorded, people can go back and discuss, do we take 10% nurses, 2%, blah, blah, blah? Or is this a phase 1, which is targeting doctors? Phase 2 is coming, phase 3 is coming, that kind of a program. But that's just a policy issue, which I think we cannot give you clear answers here.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I need to focus on the students now. You'll forgive me if I don't come to you just yet, but I'd like to have any of the students who spoke to me earlier and are eager to ask certain questions. Yep, okay.
My name is Karanjit Singh Loyal. I'm a University of Nairobi MBCHB level 5 student. I'm also a student leader there. I guess our question was asked earlier, so I'll not repeat it. However, I will bring something into light over here, which is quite obvious. As we all know, the doctor to population, civil population ratio in Eastern Africa, there's quite a gap. And the first medical personnel that actually come into contact with someone with symptoms of cancer are interns and undergraduate students. I'm requesting if you can consider training undergraduate students either when they are during the course or during internship, so that medical care in Eastern Africa can be better. Thank you.
You see, one of the things that has been done, if you look at the curriculum for medical schools, your curriculum is very, at least you can see a curriculum, we never saw one. Your curriculum is very different. And the curriculum is being reviewed quite a bit in terms of the content, and it's a constant review. Medicine was 5 years, now it is 6 years. The reason the curriculum has been revised is to give room for some of these, is it shadowed topics. I mean, when I was in medical school, I think neurology was taught for a week. Oncology, I think, for 3 days. They just gave you oncology so that you can pronounce it, and then you get the various topics, period. But now there's a lot of review in terms of details. And the other thing that is coming up now is, particularly in the 6th year, for any curriculum of MBCHB, it's 85% is fixed, and that is what is reviewed. But there is a 15% of the curriculum in terms of unit hours that every university is given. And some universities bring in things like palliative care, some people bring in things like mentorship, some bring in things like entrepreneurship. So it is really evolving. And what you're saying are some of the things that are now being put up. Eventually we make it even, I think medicine should be 8 years, so that you have an extra time so that you learn internship. By the time you leave medical school and go to Moyale, you can do a cesarean section, because as a medical student, you did cesarean section under observation as a student, so that when you become an intern, you're done. It won't be 8 years, but it probably grew a little bit long.
Okay, thank you very much. I received a question from the audience before I come back to the audience. Which are some of the infections that lead to cancer? Perhaps Dr. Sidna, maybe you want to take that? Okay. Yeah.
If you're here for the presentation, you heard about HIV. So HIV is a driver for many of the cancers, and we know that there are AIDS-defining cancers like cervical cancer, which is primarily caused by HPV, and HIV just makes HPV more able to produce cancer. So we have HIV itself, hepatitis B and C. Hepatitis B and C are related to liver cancer. Then you have the one related to Kaposi sarcoma, which is the human herpes virus 8, and then H. pylori, which is associated with some forms of gastric cancers. And then you have some a sister to HIV, which is the human T lymphotrophic virus, which is associated with a type of leukemia. I think on top of my head, those are some that I can. And HPV, apart from cervical cancer, can lead to some head and neck cancers, anal cancer, vulval cancer, vaginal cancers, so quite a number of cancers.
Okay.
And obviously there are viruses and bacteria we don't know about that are likely to lead to cancer.
And then there's commonly what you'll see in kids with a big swollen jaw. It's all infection related as well, called Epstein-Barr virus or EBV. So, and that's quite very common also within the East African region.
Okay, thank you very
In
much.
fact,
Now,
EBV also is associated with primary CNS cancers, primary CNS lymphomas. This is a lymphoma that is only found in the brain and nowhere else. So there's a lot about cancers and infections in all systems, respiratory, GI, and the what.
okay, thank you. Students, you have any other questions? I want to give you the privilege. Okay, one more here. And then I'll come to one other student before I take it back to the floor.
I'm Anita Piwot. I'm a student, but not from here in Nairobi, but I'm from Eldoret, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. I'm a clinic officer, currently specializing in medical oncology. So I don't know if I'll be repeating myself, but I was just concerned that now I'm doing my second year in medical oncology, probably to clear by next year. But I was asking the coordinator when they invited us to this meeting, this launching, that how will we benefit now that we are almost past halfway our training? So I'm asking this on behalf of myself and my colleagues. We are also doing the same. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to take it up, Omoding?
I don't know if I got you right. You say you're in your second year of medical oncology? Training, yes. You've done your residency? Or you're doing your...
Okay, the course is for higher national diploma for clinical officers. And I think in other countries they are known as the assistant physicians. Oh, okay. So it's a course that takes 2 years at maximum, but 1.5 years. Yeah.
I think this particular training is looking at purely doctors at the moment, and the fellowship aspect of it is actually looking at those who have completed the residency or the postgraduate training, more preferred for the fellowship program.
Okay, thank you. So
I think like it was mentioned earlier, it's a process. And I think the current program is a starting off process. And normally when you start any program, you want to get training of trainers. You see, it has a ripple effect. You have a trainer who comes and trains, and then at some point, one then starts expanding it in all manner of forms, expanding it in terms of size. But like it had been said earlier, we cannot overlook the fact that even as we start, what do we do? I think it's more or less the same question that the lady had asked, but again, that's a policy issue. It's a policy which you can be followed.
Let me just add, you may not benefit directly as a clinical officer in medical oncology from this training, but what you'll benefit from is when the students come back, the oncologists come back, you have a critical mass to offer oncology service. So we cannot look at it as just one person going for training. We have different training programs that feed into that critical mass that we are trying to build. You could be a trainer of other clinical officers. So whatever you're doing is useful, and what the EADP training is useful, and it's all forming that critical mass of doctors that are needed.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I am mandated to end this session within the next 5 minutes, so I am going to allow one more student to ask a question, and then I shall come to you. Here we are.
My name's Khadija Mohammed. I'm from the University of Nairobi, final year medical student. and also the vice chair of the student organization body. I have two questions. The first one, what are the requirements for students who want to join the postgraduate program? And two, are there any mentorship programs for us who will just enter into the field?
What are the requirements? As it is now, there's two phases. In fact, there is a phase, there is a training program, a one-week training program, end of September. One in Nairobi, and then the following week in Kampala. Then, is it January?
That's right, yeah.
January, there'll be Tanzania and Rwanda. Now, this one targets doctors, right? And it is a very brief one. It probably has two purposes. One is to, like it had been said, is to get as many, it's only a slot of 10, and it's going to be advertised on the website. So you'll get to know about it. So then you'll apply, the criteria will be there. But the first one is for doctors, at least as far as neurology goes. And then they look at other things, the distribution, there's a format for applying, which is online. That format has not been.
That's right, it should be online now.
It should be online now. So you'll be given the site and you apply. The subsequent one, which probably may kick off from this one, is if you take 10 people and you're going to have a long-term problem, you may have to decide who are these 10 people going for the longer-term training, okay? But it will be online, there will be a criteria, and some of the things is what was mentioned, the evidence that there is this retention coming back, okay, in the long-term one. Mentorship, not at the moment, because this was really a crash. You know, you're picking a few topics. The other thing it does is just to gauge, because in the long run, there's going to be both foreign faculty and local faculty. So the one-week training has a lot of faces to it. It is mobilizing local faculty. It is assessing the capability, because eventually, this is a 4-year program. Eventually, at some point, it will have to be taken over by somebody somewhere. And there are several avenues. There's the regional East, Central, Southern African College of Physicians, which is being mooted once it picks up. Because we have been very dependent. You give me a program for 4 years, when the 4 years end, I don't know whether I'm going to jump over the cliff or I'm going to climb a hill. So there's a situation where now, it's a deliberate plan. Once the 4 years is over, who is going to take it over and how are they going to take it over? And like I said, this is the fast thinking, but a lot can still be evaluated in terms of who are the other cadres that are coming, how long will it be, and stuff like that. But it will be online for the ones who are interested, both for oncology, isn't it? Even for oncology, it will be online. Once you get the site, apply, and apply good.
I just wanted to add that this is the start of a process, and this piece of work here in East Africa, certainly from the Royal College of Physicians' perspective, we see it as a platform for further work across Africa. And so we'll be watching very closely the implementation of the training program, the delivery that occurs, drawing the best practice, learning the lessons, and looking at how, with our partners, we can cascade it over to West, Southern Africa, and so on, so that we build beyond year 4, year 8, year 12, a sustainable capacity that really makes a long-term difference.
Okay, thank you very much. Second last question to you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Gishuru. I'm a practicing doctor here in Kenya. I've not yet specialized. So my question is generally on the fellowship itself and the trainings that you'll be conducting, particularly for medical students. I, as a practicing doctor, I trained here in Nairobi, but I think as one of the students highlighted, there's a lack of skill when it comes to managing certain simple oncological things. For example, when you detect the cervical cancer, when you detect it as a doctor, what do you do about it? Is it part of the plan that you would actually incorporate training for simple treatments where you screen and treat immediately for cervical cancer instead of having to send them further on? Would this be something that can be integrated into the medical curriculum? And the second part touches on what Cabinet Secretary Mailu talked about. How can we integrate research into clinical practice? Many of us who are practicing as GPs, as general practitioners, we see these cases, but we never look at them from a research perspective in terms of cancer registries, in terms of detecting what our problem is before we actually say, this is how we're going to manage it. So is there any plan for trying to get that into medical schools and into practicing physicians who are not yet specialists so that we can actually detect and gauge the degree of problem that we have? Is it cervical? Is it esophageal? Is there something like that planned into the training? Thank you.
Thank you. So, yep. Go ahead, Dr. Omoding.
Yeah, so currently, for those who will qualify to go onto this medical training and the fellowship, yes, there's a component on screening as well. We've actually had discussions back at the Cancer Institute in Uganda that after the East African Development Bank training program and fellowship, 4 or 5 years down the road, train the products and all up and running, what will happen? Shall we stop training? And again, given that Uganda is now actually hosting the East African Oncology Institute, we are actually in the process of thinking that we'll actually adapt this curricula into the East African Oncology Institute. And we are planning to come up with different training modules that any doctor, wherever in East Africa or Africa, can actually come and be trained on that. So I think it's all in pipeline.
Okay. Just a quick clarification. You mentioned a website, and I've been requested. Do you know the website, the URL?
Yes, that's right. There's a dedicated program website which should be up and running at the moment. I will check what it is in 5 minutes and just
I'm
make
sure
sure
we'll be able
knows.
to get it during the lunch break. You can engage Mr. Crump and he'll get it to you. Now, one last question, and this is because this is a representative from a county government and he has to go back and answer certain questions. That's why I have made that provision for that, yeah? The county government of Bungoma.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernard Nyongesa Mureka. I'm the Chief Officer of Health, Bungoma County. I've got a group of very young doctors, very ambitious, and they were actually happy when they heard of this program. But what am I taking home? And I'm sorry if I'm repeating if these questions were already asked. I've come in a bit late. I'm interested in the following information. Number one, which institution? Which university? Number two, eligibility. That's criteria. Like if I go back, am I going to give to Wambuku or Onyango or who? What is it that I'm going to look at? Or is it the university, when they apply online, is after they have been admitted that they will come to me? I did something to that. Now, course duration is very important because doctors are scarce. It's good that I know how many are going and for how long, so that I know the time they'll be away, what will be the shortfall, and what am I going to do. Then number three, it's also just good that you talk about fees and upkeep. Then second last or so, it's also good to know how many per county. Like Bungoma County is one of the large counties. I think it's the third largest after Nairobi and Kakamega. How many slots for Bungoma? And then as a county, when we release students for further studies, we bond them. So the issue of bonding, I think, is critical here. And then the last one, so that I give the right information. After completion of this course, certification, is it a med? Is it master's degree in medicine, or what is it? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think, I don't know if I may just interject a bit, most of those questions will be aptly answered, I think, on the website. It's information that we'll find there, unless you want to add anything else to it at this stage. But this website goes live on Monday for your information. I've just gotten the information, and it is www.eadbmetaf.org. I shall repeat that. www.eadbmetaf.org. All right? I think most of those questions will be answered.
Just to clarify, a lot of those questions are policy, and a lot of them will be answered when one gets to the site. But it's important to stress that there are two aspects of this training. There is the 1 week training, which is what is going to go on the website. The 1 week training in September in Uganda, in Kenya and Uganda, and January in Rwanda and Tanzania. This is a 1 week training, which is a crash program. It's actually assessing a lot of things: logistics, the training side, the local faculty, foreign faculty, how do they interact, the curriculum, and all that. And like I said earlier, this is for the doctors. But then there is the second phase, which is, I don't know whether to call it the second phase or the second training, which is the fellowship training. The fellowship training is not going to come to the website on Monday. The one that is going to come on Monday is for those applying for the 1 week crash program, which is, it's like a pre-test, post-test. I mean, what are we getting into? Is there local faculty? Are there facilities? Because it's going to be very broad. There are lectures, there are case presentations, and the foreign faculty will also have a chance to look at various facilities, okay? Now, in at least the neurology one will be at Kenyatta in the Department of Medicine. The oncology one is in Kampala, most likely at the Cancer Institute. And then in January, it will be Tanzania and Rwanda. If you may, this is like testing the ground. What are we getting into? It is not the training that the EADB boss announced. The fellowship training is the one that probably the Bungoma colleague is talking about. When they come, are they going to come and be bonded by Bungoma or bonded by EADB or bonded by RCP, whatever the case may be? But those are details which will come over time. But it's critical that on Monday, when you're applying, you're not applying for a fellowship, you're applying for a 1 week crash program, which the system is also using to test a lot of ground. But this is like, it will be like a refresher course. Like you have gone for a 1 week course on endoscopy, for instance. But this will be a broad spectrum 1 week. It is not the primary training program. I hope it's clear.
Yeah, so if I may add what Prof has said, so the very first course is going to be a train of trainers. It's a TOT, and the first people that are going to be selected are going to be, as he's put it, it's going to be a very crash course that we will really want to instill in you what you're going to teach at your district or at your regional referral hospital colleagues. So ideally, if a patient with a breast mass came to your clinic, what are you going to do? What kind of history? What kind of physical exam? What kind of tests, a batch of tests are you going to run? And if you suspect it's cancer, where must you refer? So that is all intended to really, cascade over down to the grassroots. But it will begin the TOT of those who will train the others. Okay? So that is, so you'll become a train of trainees, ultimately, from the very first course. But as he's put it, the other longer one is a fellowship program. And the requirements are, if I slightly leak it out, at least you must be an M.Med, a Master's of Medicine qualified, because this is going to be slightly at a high level, and you should have possibly thought a career path in oncology. Because to take you for 2 years or 4 years in the UK and you come back and do cardiology after being trained in oncology, it's really not profitable at all. So you'll definitely need to crystallize your career path by the time you actually choose on that.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am very sorry. However, I must bring this session to an end. We are overrunning by almost 25 minutes. So I will humbly request that you engage our panelists during our lunch session. And I humbly request the panelists to ensure that we do engage the individuals who still have questions. I can see the room is beginning to warm up with questions now. However, we must remain time conscious, right? So join me in thanking our panelists today.
Maybe Chair, maybe one of the things we may, because you see, these questions are very helpful in refining. I'm not saying you're going to ask the question, no. But these questions are very helpful in refining this. What I'm suggesting is if the Secretariat, maybe in the same website, can have a port where, is it called a port? Is that what you call it? Where you can port in your questions and have them be a Dropbox and then have them be answered. Because the questions here are so crucial, and there are some questions which are being asked and I'm hit back and say, hey, why didn't we think of this? So it is very important to have that port, if that is, I was born BBC, whether the questions can be sent and then answers are sent eventually through the British Council. I think the British Council guy is there. Maybe you can just reassure them that there will be a port.
There will be a port when this goes live on Monday, and we will be responding to questions that are coming through within 48 hours. So be reassured that all your questions will be answered.
Okay, thank you very much.
It will actually refine the program very well.
That's right, and thank you very much for that addition. That's George Kogola. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Dr. Omoding, Mr. Crump, Professor Joey, and Dr. Satna for being here with us. All right, let's give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you're welcome to lunch. Lunch is served at the main restaurant by the reception. Good afternoon, and God bless.